And henceforth, whenever there is any doubt of who it is that you keel to, of who it is that generously allows your hearts to keep beating, think of this poor misguided girl and be grateful.
The woman on the stage spoke without any doubt of her own words. She was currently standing at the back of a large wooden platform, hands crossed behind her back. She stared forward at a crowd of people with a soft smile, though the smile didn't extend to her eyes, which seemed to have no irises, simply being white with large black pupils in the center. The woman had an immaculate appearance, not a single blemish across her pale body. Her hair was long, going down far enough to where it would touch the floor. It seemed like it was naturally a dim blue color, but it also looked like it had been coated in a black dust, muting the color to more of a gray blue. She wore a long black dress with a corset around her waist, the laces being pulled tight. On the front, the dress stopped just shy of her ankles, but on the back, the dress was dragging behind her, touching the ground. Contrasting the majority of the pitch black dress was the hemming, which was the same muted blue color that made up her hair. On her feet, she wore black heels that went up about 10 inches, making her about 6 feet tall, though when they were off, she only stood at 5'2". This was the woman that would inevitably be deposed by Edmund in the future, the queen that held a tighter grip on Luxon than even he would. Astrid Kinellas. Standing in front of her on the same stage were 2 women, though for one of them, perhaps standing isn't apt phrasing. One woman was kneeling on the back of the other, holding her by the hair so that she was looking up at the crowd ahead. The woman on top was simply called One, a title which she held great pride in, representing her position as the most loyal and useful slave of the queen. One stood tall, at just about 6 feet in height. She had a white skin tone and platinum blonde hair that was cut just above her ears. Her brown eyes showed no expression other than rage at the woman that she was on top of. Her attire certainly matched her position, being a white shirt made of tattered cloth and torn brown pants, along with a pair of brown sandals. Her body was covered in several cuts and bruises, but most seemed to have long healed or dried up. She did at least seem to be in better condition than that of the woman below her, who was actively bleeding out of over 100 cuts across her body and was missing an eye. One looked up to Astrid, silently looking for approval. Astrid simply nodded down to her, as One took a small blade from her pocket and used it to slit the woman's throat, and she did so many times over. She must have cut along her neck at least 10 times, severing through her trachea and carotid arteries. Her head being held up caused an increased pressure, which meant the sudden release of the throat being cut sent out a flow of blood intense enough that it coated the faces of those in the front few rows of the crowd, who just seemed horrified. Not even waiting for the screams of the woman to finish, One stood up and jumped off the back of the stage. Astrid gave the crowd a small curtsy before exiting the same way and walking away with her slave. Not even 5 seconds later, 2 men came jumping onto the stage, one bolting after Astrid, while the other chased him in panic, lagging quite far behind.
Damn coward! Won't even do your own dirty work. Gotta have a slave kill your citizens for you, huh? Well, I'll give you another person to have someone else kill you, damn... Ugh!
The man who had begun shouting had an appearance that could best be described as wild. He stood roughly at 6'2", and he had a white skin tone, the skin mostly being covered in cuts, bruises, and dirt. He had ratty red hair that went down to his neck and clearly hadn't been brushed in at least a month. The man had piercing golden eyes and wore a torn white shirt and a large blackish green jacket. On the hood of the jacket and on the area over the elbows were gray stripes, which had prints of different kinds of predatory animals painted on in black, including things like bear, tiger, and wolf prints. Finally, he also had on black boots and pants that were both caked in mud. He was a popular street fighter in the district of Mentris, which they were currently in, and his name was Volker Wulf, better known by his nickname, the Red. As he shouted, he lunged towards Astrid, but he didn't even get close before one was behind him, grabbing his hands and tossing him into an alleyway between two small buildings. She pinned his hands behind his back and held him on the ground, coating his face in the mud that was covering the floor of the alley.
Damn it! Let me up! If I'm gonna die, it's gonna be in battle with her!
Astrid softly giggled as she turned around, approaching Volker and crouching.
Oh my, what a troublesome populace I've cultivated. I didn't plan on wasting any more time today, but so be it. One, get this filth to the stands.
One nodded to Astrid before pulling Volker to his feet, who struggled with all his might, biting, clawing, and shouting to be let go. One, however, had no reaction to his struggles, ignoring the pain as she began to drag him off. Soon after she started, though, the second man finally caught up and began pleading in a panic.
Wait! Queen Astrid, I'm so sorry. I beg you, please, forgive us. Just let him go this once. He's drunk and he doesn't know what he's talking about.
As the man finished speaking, he took several deep breaths, panting as he looked up at Astrid in desperation, while one simply continued to drag Volker away. This was the man who would one day come to rule Luxon, Edmund Farrellin. He stood at about 5 feet and 7 inches tall, was extremely thin, and had a pale complexion. He had black hair that was highlighted to dark blue at the ends, and it went down to just below his neck. This was the same blue that colored his eyes, which still held the same immense brightness that they had 1,600 years in the future. He had on a t-shirt with a gradient that started as the same dark blue color as his hair and eyes at the collar, and became gray as it moved down towards the bottom. Over this was a jacket colored with the same gradient as the undershirt. The jacket was open on the front and the hood was over his head, while the sleeves were rolled up such that his forearms would be visible. Edmund also wore a pair of black pants as well as a pair of black knee-high boots, which had a silver lining and seemed to be made of high-quality leather. At this point in time, he was a street fighter nicknamed the Blue that commonly did tag team fights with Volker, his closest friend. Seeing Edmund, Astrid held out a hand and snapped, signaling one to stop moving. She walked up to Volker and crouched down, putting a hand under his chin and tilting his head up to look at her in the eyes, a slight smile on her face.
Well, you cur, be grateful you have at least some friends that are worth more than the mud on my heel. One, release him.
One nodded to Astrid before letting Volker go, who stood up with a scowl.
I didn't ask to be let go. I asked you to fight me and prove you're more than a...
Before Volker could finish his sentence, Edmund grunted loudly as he wound back his fist and punched him as hard as he could, sending Volker flying backwards into a wall, a wince of pain sounding out as he fell to the ground.
My patience wears thin. You would do well not to test it again. Come one, we've wasted enough time with these mongrels.
Astrid quickly walked off with one at her heels, but not before glaring back at Edmund and Volker. Volker let out a snarl and shot up from the ground as the two rounded a corner.
The hell was that for, asshole?
Oh, my apologies for not letting you throw your life away. Seriously, what were you thinking? I know how you feel, but this isn't gonna help.
You think I don't know that? I told you, man. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm tired of sitting around and waiting for you to plan shit out. We need to act.
As Volker spoke, Edmund's expression slowly became more somber. When Volker was done, Edmund leaned in close and wrapped his arms around him in a tight hug.
Listen, Volker. I'm sorry, but these suicide runs, they aren't gonna change anything. Just be patient, alright?
Edmund pulled back from the hug, and Volker looked at him confused.
I've had enough of being patient, Edmund. It's time to face the facts. Nothing's gonna change if we keep going at her the way we are now.
Are you saying what I think you're saying? You seriously think we should do that?
Yes, we need to go to Judas and talk to Johnny. Join up with an actual squad instead of running around on our own.
Damn it. Yeah, alright, we'll do it.
Volker gave Edmund a wide smile, putting a hand on his shoulder.
Yes! Finally! I've been waiting for you to say that for fucking ever! Alright, let's get moving!
Calm down, man. Wait a minute. Today's the day he planned to raid Judas Tower and give his big speech. We should probably head over later, see if we can catch him after.
Oh shit! The raid's today? Damn, I kinda wanna be there for that. Fine, we'll wait. But we're hitting the tavern while we do. I need something to take the edge off that tooth being knocked out.
Well, I did tell Astrid you were drunk. And man, it'd be wrong to lie to the queen. So sure, why not?
Edmund laughed slightly as he finished speaking, and the two began to walk out of the alley. As they went through the stone streets of Melino, the capital city of Mentris, they saw very few people roaming about the city. This was a common occurrence after visits from the queen. Mentris was located in the far south of Luxon, making it far away from both Eridus, the capital district located far to the northeast that represented hate magic, where Astrid resided, as well as Yanis, the district representing pride magic, ruled by Astrid's most trusted and cruel ally, located far to the southwest. All of this is to say that it was relatively uncommon for Astrid to make her way down to Mentris, so when she did, almost all citizens would take shelter in their homes for their own safety. After about 20 minutes of traveling through the empty streets, the two men arrived at a large building called Mentris Tower. In each district of Luxon, a capital tower was constructed to represent the culture of that district. Mentris was the district of deceit magic, but the Princess of Mentris wanted to make it seem like a place of fun. As such, much to her father's dismay, she transformed Mentris Tower into the largest tavern in Luxon. Deceit users were almost entirely resistant to the effects of alcohol, so the princess wanted a place that she and her citizens could get drunk at, and non-deceit users could get absolutely trashed at by the alcohol served there. The building itself was a massive spire made of brick, with a large circular base going up and narrowing into a purple glowing point up in the sky. Evenly spaced windows covered the building, and even though most people were home, the tower was still quite busy, with people constantly going in and out. Volker ran in front of Edmund up to a large set of double doors and entered the tower full of excitement, with Edmund rolling his eyes before running in behind him.
Man, no way! It's her!
What are you on? Oh, I get you now.
Sure, the inside of the tower was just as luxurious as the outside, being completely spotless with a frankly absurd amount of alcohol to choose from. But that wasn't what had Edmund and Volker's attention. Their eyes instead were fixed on a woman sitting at a table surrounded by men. She had flawless porcelain skin and long flowing light purple hair which went down to her legs. Her eyes were purple as well, though a bit darker than her hair. She stood quite tall, easily 6'2" or more, and she wore a purple strapless dress which stopped at her ankles, which were covered by black stockings. Under the dress was a sheer black shirt, which gave some cover to the expansive skin left exposed by the dress. Adorning the bottom of the dress was a set of translucent crimson gemstones, which had been masterfully cut into the shape of roses. Finishing the ensemble of clothing, she had on sheer black evening gloves and dress shoes, with purple sparks moving across them, resembling a starry sky. This attire was of course not what you would find on your everyday peasant, but she was no everyday peasant. This was the Princess of Mentris, one which was loved and sought after by most in Luxon, Eleanor Aster.
Jeez, not every day you see someone like her.
Come on then, go shoot your shot. Both of us know you want to. What was that poem you sent to her house again? Oh, Eleanor, sweet Eleanor, your eyes are like... Ooh.
Volker shoved a hand over Edmund's mouth quickly.
Shut the hell up, I was like 10 years old! Do not ruin this for me, man!
I feel like you... Looks like someone's on their way to ruin it for me.
One of the men around Eleanor leaned in towards her and slowly moved a hand up her cheek and through her hair. Eleanor looked up at him, trying to smile, but couldn't hide an annoyed glare as she reached up and grabbed the man's hand.
I would appreciate it if you would kindly get the fuck back.
Damn, sweetheart, you got a mouth on ya. If you need practice keeping it shut, I'd be happy to fill it for you.
As the man spoke, a purple spark appeared in Eleanor's right hand. After a few seconds, the spark materialized into a long spear, illuminating a purple color. The blade of the spear was made up of a black metal with a dark purple tip, while the handle had a bit of an unorthodox design. The bottom half of the shaft was much thicker than the top half, and the border going from thick to thin was a golden lacing which traced around the circumference of the weapon. The thicker bottom half was opened at the end, showing that the inside of it was a hollow canal with nothing in it other than a glowing orange substance which coated the walls of the hole. Eleanor gripped the spear in the middle and held it towards the man's head, glaring at him.
Oh, Princess thinks she can stand up to us just 'cause she has a daddy to protect her, huh?
Propel.
The orange substance inside the spear increased in luminosity, and a high-pitched noise began to fill the tower. After about 2 seconds of wind-up, the spear shot forward in the blink of an eye, the tip opening up like a flower as it went clean through the man's head. This left a gaping hole where the man's face was, going all the way through to where you could see the wall behind him. His body stood for a moment before he fell backwards to the ground, and the spear made a U-turn in midair and returned to her hand. The other men looked shocked for a moment before glaring at Eleanor. The attention of most of the people in the front half of the tower had also now shifted to the fight unfolding before them.
I have no tolerance for people like that. I do apologize for showing you all such a sight in the middle of town.
Oh, you'll be sorry for a lot more than that soon.
The rest of the men around Eleanor attempted to lunge at her to pin her down. She jumped backwards with an expression of anger, glaring at all of them.
Do you all truly want to go out like him? Stand down!
Hey, that's enough!
Volker and Edmund ran up to the group of men, their fists clenched as they went. One of the men turned around and laughed in a cocky manner.
Back off, fellas, unless you want to feel my fist going up your ass.
Well, alright, I guess it's your call.
All the men saw was a blue light shooting across the room as Edmund seemed to disappear. The light zipped in a line across the legs of each of the men. After the light passed the last man, Edmund reappeared, standing on the other side of the group. He was now holding a massive scythe colored a light blue that was slightly translucent. Each man just appeared to have a small cut on their ankles, and they seemed confused.
What the hell was that?
Oh, you wanna dance, little guy? We'll fucking dance!
Concept erasure. Voluntary movement.
Seriously, man? Taking the fun out of everything, I swear.
After Edmund finished speaking, the 6 men would completely freeze in place before crumpling to the floor and laying there, motionless.
Hey, barkeep. Get some rope and tie these guys up. Get the guards out here, too. They tried to attack the princess.
A tall, dark-skinned man wearing a snazzy suit and a pair of glasses ran over from the other side of the tower and stopped in front of them holding a length of rope. Eleanor just seemed confused at what she had just witnessed.
The hell happened here? How do I know you're telling the truth? Maybe I should have you two taken instead.
Just do it! This'll only last another 30 seconds, and I don't have enough Phala to do it again.
It's fine, Bob. They're not lying.
Well, if you say so, Princess.
Bob quickly tied up the hands of each man before running outside. Edmund then fell onto his back, taking in slow, deep breaths.
Well, I'm not sure what you did exactly, but wait, are you okay?
Yeah. I'm just... Volker, you explain, please.
His weapon has just about the worst fail efficiency I've ever seen. One use like that can tire him out sometimes.
Oh, I see. Please, then take as long as you need to recover. And when you can speak, I'd love to get your name so I could get you to a proper reward.
Volker Wulf, ma'am! At your service!
You don't need to be that formal, you know. But I guess that works.
And I'm Edmund. Edmund Farrellin.
Well, Volker and Edmund, I'm gonna head home to get some dockerel and come right back. You guys have earned it.
Thank you very much, Princess Aster.
Don't mention it. And please, call me Ellie.
Sure, Ellie works. Yeah, Ellie.
It was a pleasure to meet both of you. I'll return soon.
You too. Be safe, Princess.
Eleanor walked over to the tower's entrance, but as she reached her hand out towards the door handle, the door shot open, and Eleanor looked up with a nervous and slightly awkward expression.
Hey, Dad. What are you doing here?
Where are they?
The man who entered the tavern had a blank expression, but there was rage hiding behind his eyes. He stood at a height of 6'7" and gave off an overwhelming aura of power, as if you could feel the Phala flowing out of him. He had light skin and light purple eyes with an intense glow to them. The eyes seemed exhausted, like he hadn't slept since he began to live. His hair was jet black and well-kempt, going down to the bottom of his neck. He wore a white button-up shirt and a black trench coat over his shoulders, though he kept his arms out of the holes of the coat. On his lower half, he had on a pair of black pants and dress shoes. By all accounts, it was fairly ordinary clothing considering his position. He was the ruler of Mentris, and the first ever person known to possess deceit magic, Elias Aster. After he had finished speaking, he walked over to Edmund and Volker, raising a hand up towards them.
Vice Aster, we were just, we weren't the ones who...
It wasn't those two, Father! It was them!
Eleanor pointed towards the group of men on the ground. By now, they had started to move again, albeit in quite a sluggish manner, groaning and writhing as they struggled in their bonds.
I know. I ran into Bob outside. I was simply trying to ascertain the motives of these two.
No motives here, sir. We just wanted to protect the princess.
Where is Bob anyway? He was getting a cart to bring these guys to the
I told him that was no longer necessary.
Why?
Elias silently approached the group of men and looked down at them.
I cannot possibly comprehend what would compel even a drunken man to do what you have done where you have done it. As such, I see it futile to hold you. We'll just be done with this, here and now.
What do you mean?
Elias raised his hand into the air and seemingly swiped something to the right. No one could see what it actually was. After he did, though, it only took a moment for the screams to stop. The limbs on all of the men twisted around their bodies 10 times over before shooting off with an immense force, followed by their abdomens bursting. This coated the walls in their flesh, blood, and other viscera. But that, too, was short-lived. With another movement of his hand, the blood seemed to snap out of existence, leaving Eleanor glaring at him in anger, while Edmund, Volker, and everyone else in the tower seemed to be at a loss for words.
Where did they go?
There was no blood or anything. Just screams and then... gone. What did you do?
Father, you can't just do that to people!
Yes, but they can just try and rape you. I see now. Come now, Eleanor. We're going.
Elias quickly left the tower, and while Eleanor wanted to quit back at him, she couldn't muster up the courage to do so.
I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Eleanor finished speaking and ran out of the tower, following Elias.
Wait! Don't go yet! Damn it.
There, man. You'll see her again. But, we should probably just get going to Judas now.
Ugh, yeah, sure. Fine. Didn't even get a damn drink.
Eleanor slammed open the door to a mansion. It was the Aster family estate, and while it certainly seemed to be a wealthy household, it wasn't as regal as one might expect. It was a 2-story building made of white-colored wood, and it had many windows all across it to peer inside. There was a dining room in front of the entrance with a nice table and silverware, a living room with a large leather couch, and a variety of other rooms with high-quality furniture and decorations. The home just felt cozy. It wasn't the home of a royal attempting to show off his wealth, just of someone trying to live comfortably. Elias entered the house, calm with a frown on his face, while Eleanor rushed halfway up the stairs before turning around and shouting down at him.
Seriously, I could have dealt with them on my own. You don't need to step in, do your hand-wavy thing, and just erase people like that.
Ellie, you know I want to respect your wishes, and I know how powerful you are. But are you seriously asking a father to just let his daughter deal with the man attempting to violate her?
No, Dad, why can't you trust me?
I do trust you. I just don't trust the people around you. Even those 2 boys that saved you. For all you know, they could have done so just to give you a false sense of security. You're a princess, Eleanor. It's a wonderful life of wealth and comfort, but it is also a life where you can never know who is truly trustworthy.
Volker and Edmund are nothing like that. You gotta look for yourself. They didn't have any bad intentions at all.
Yes, you're correct. From what I could tell, they seem to have no ulterior motives, and I apologize for acting so rashly. But I'm no more than a good judge of character. I'm not psychic, Ellie. They could have just been good at hiding it or had magic to help hide it, or any other of 1,000 things to make you think they were trustworthy. Look, the point is, even if Edmund and Volker were trustworthy, not everyone will be. So just be careful, all right?
Fine. Whatever. I'll be careful.
Thank you.
Before Elias could finish speaking, Eleanor ran up the rest of the stairs and entered a room, slamming the door behind her. Elias let out a sigh and took a seat at the dining room table, leaning onto his arm.
Just like your mother, aren't you? What am I going to do with...
Elias's gaze shifted downwards to see a large circular blade made of steel, which gave off the phalonic aura of a magic weapon lodged inside of his throat. It was like a chakram, except it had a wooden handle in the center, such that it could be held and used for melee combat. Looking up, Elias saw that the chakram had been thrown clean through the front door, tearing straight through it. Elias seemed shocked for a moment, before raising his hand in a much calmer manner than should have been warranted in this situation. He reached his hand forward, and a large button colored dark crimson materialized in midair. Hovering just above the surface of the button in gold lettering were the words Master Control. Elias swiped his hand quickly along the surface of the button before pressing it, and in the next instant he was back standing next to the dinner table, the sound of Ellie's bedroom door slamming audible once more. He quickly took a step to the side and waited next to the door of his home, and sure enough, a few moments later the same chakram came flying through the door and slamming into the wall of the dining room. Loud and boisterous laughter could be heard as a man kicked the door open.
First deceit user my fucking ass. Couldn't even dodge a simple ugh.
Without hesitation, Elias stepped out from behind the now open door and grabbed the man by the throat, slamming him against the wall. Physically, the man was a beast. He stood at 6'5" and was likely at least 300 pounds, almost all of which being pure muscle. He had an olive complexion and long golden hair that was tied into braids hanging down to his mid-back. His eyes were the same golden color, and they looked as if they could tear through the souls of 1,000 men with just a glance. He wore a short-sleeved leather vest with no undershirt, leaving the vast majority of his bulky upper body uncovered. On his wrists were silver bracelets with a twisted wiring design, and he had a ring on each finger, each being made out of a different material. His pants were beige and baggy, going all the way down to his ankles, where they had been tucked into a pair of black boots. His name was Rykard Smough, and he was one of Queen Astrid's most trusted allies, as well as the ruler of the Pride District, Giannis.
What do you want, Rykard?
What did it look like I wanted? To tear your fucking head off!
Rykard winced and struggled, trying to push Elias off of him. Somehow, though, despite the clear difference in who should have physical superiority, Elias managed to keep him pinned without struggle.
The both of us know you would never attempt to kill another Vyfe without a very good reason. So why don't we try again? Why are you here?
Elias began to press harder on Rykard's throat, putting immense pressure on his windpipe, but Rykard let out nothing more than a pained laugh.
All right, already. Let me down, and we'll talk.
Thank you.
Elias released his grip on Rykard, dropping him to the floor. He then went and sat down at the dinner table as Rykard stood up and crossed his arms.
You want to know why I'm here? Sure, whatever. I'll tell you. But you aren't gonna like the answer.
I would expect not after you tried to murder me.
Good. Astrid asked me to come up while she did her execution, and afterwards she ran into two troublemakers named Volker and Edmund who tried to attack her. She ordered me to kill them and all of their associates. And well, one of my guys just happened to be at the Mentress Tower getting wasted. I'm sure you can guess what happens next.
Elias quickly rose from his chair, glaring down at Rykard.
You're here for Eleanor.
I knew you were an intelligent man, Elias, and I don't plan to be on Queen Astrid's hit list anytime soon.
Astrid didn't even know Eleanor was involved. That means you're just a desperate dog trying to get a treat from his master. Maybe you think that if you please her, she'll save Giannis from becoming even more of a trash heap than it already is. Astrid wouldn't care any differently if you just pretended your man never saw her with those two.
Enough! You got me by surprise before, but if you don't quiet down, well, I don't miss twice.
Oh, I do implore you to test such a statement.
Relax. Maybe I'll take you up on that offer one day, but for now, fine. I'll back off your sweet Eleanor.
Do what you want. Kill whoever you want. But if you dare lay a finger on her, then I will personally gift wrap your entrails and deliver them to Astrid's doorstep. Now get the hell out of here.
Well then, looks like I touched a nerve. I'll see you later, Elias.
Rykard smirked at Elias and left the building. Elias then sat back down and let out a loud sigh as he summoned Master Control again. He quickly swiped and pressed the button, causing a small cup of tea to materialize in front of him.
Rykard Smough. What a fascinating player you are.
As Elias finished speaking, he raised the cup of tea to his lips and took a sip before chuckling slightly and setting the cup back down, a satisfied smile on his face.
I cannot believe this is truly needed right now, Master.
The woman spoke to herself while leaning against a wall of a large building. Muffled noises of a suggestive nature were heard coming from within.
What can I say?
The woman stood at about 5'10" in height and had a thin but toned stature with a white complexion. Her wavy, reddish-orange hair flowed down to her low back and stood in contrast to her blue eyes that seemed to be quite dull. A horizontal scar went across the bottom of her face over the chin and cheeks, and another went in a diagonal line from the middle of her forehead to under her left eye. For the most part, she wore clothing typical of a peasant, a black cloth blouse, black leggings, and black boots with laces. However, she also had on a belt made of a fine black leather, a circular pattern imprinted onto it in gold where the notches were. Complementing this was a pair of form-fitting black gloves, which were made of the same leather as her belt and went down to her wrists. The main symbols of wealth that she had access to, however, were her sword and her cloak. The cloak was massive, covering her entire back in a grayish-blue fur. The base of the cloak was made up of a dark brown leather, and while it wasn't pinned together in the front, it managed to stay on without issue. Then there was her sword, which was simple in design, but terrifying in its potential. It had a simple brown pommel and wrapping, as well as a black hilt. Then there was the blade, which was shaped into a wavy pattern all the way down its 6-foot length. At the base of the blade were small openings which went into the hilt, with a dim blue glow coming from inside them. The sword also didn't have a sheath, always hanging free in the air, yet somehow never collecting damage or being a bother to the woman it was on. Needless to say, despite a most average appearance, most people would know better than to mess with her. Her name was Elisia van Reinhold, and officially she was a slave to a nobleman from the Ozriroth family, the ruling family of the District of Faith Magic, Omnilica. She was also a demogun, a race of beings which seemed human but lacked the ability to truly feel and understand many emotions, that is, without entering a separate mode demoguns had access to, where they could use the abilities of their essence type. When in this mode, they would become the embodiment of their essence type, representing all emotions and personality traits that it stood for in the actions they took. Elisia was part of the stable clan of demoguns, which meant that when she wasn't in her magic use mode, she was barely able to feel any emotion at all, both positive and negative, though there were instances when small snippets of these emotions would shine through. As she stood outside of this perverse place, people passed by every couple of minutes, giving her a confused expression, though none actually spoke to her. Finally, after about an hour of standing there waiting, the door slowly opened, and a man walked out with a loud yawn.
You certainly spent a while in there, Master. I never knew you were so fiending.
Listen, Elisia, I've heard for years the playhouses in Judas are the best in Luxon. You really think I'm not going to get my money's worth?
No, I just think it's gross.
Well, maybe we'll throw you in one while you're in magic use mode someday. See how you react.
The man placed a hand on Elisia's shoulder, smirking, and she simply groaned in response, rolling her eyes. He stood a bit shorter than her, about 5'8". He had light skin and a small frame that was quite toned. He had frizzy gray hair going down to his ears and dim brown eyes. For his attire, he had on a gray suit with a white button-up undershirt and a black tie. Both the tie and undershirt seemed very wrinkled from recent activities, though the suit was quite nice. The cuffs of the suit were crimson red with a twin-tailed serpent symbol going around them in a black color. This same serpent was also used for the design of his belt. It was made of easily movable metal, bent into a wave pattern around his waist, and 2 blue gemstones were used for the eyes of the serpent. His pants were the same gray color as the suit, and he had on nice dress shoes made of an expensive black leather. His name was Nobu Ozriroth, and he hailed from the same district as Elisia, Omnilica.
I would much prefer we didn't do that, Master.
All right, fine. Anyway, let's get moving. We have some real business to attend to.
Oh, thank the gods. I had begun to think you dragged me out to Judas just so I could stand outside a playhouse.
Come on now. What kind of man do you take me for?
A whorish one.
That's probably fair.
Nobu chuckled and began to lead Elisia away from the playhouse. They went down a small path that they had taken to get there initially, and after about 10 minutes of walking, they ended up in the heart of Judas, Mistopheles. The district of Judas had always been relatively low on the hierarchy of importance, but this city was the exception. It was a massive trade hub in the world, with Judas Tower being where many large trade deals were negotiated between districts, as well as a place where citizens would go to receive updates on Luxon-wide politics, even if those updates tended to be a bit biased. Around the tower, in the same area where Nobu and Elisia had entered, was a bustling marketplace. People were selling all manner of trinkets and services on the sides of the cobblestone path that ran through the market, and it was nearly always filled to the brim with people. Today was no exception, with a few thousand people packed together right in the center of the city. But not 30 seconds after the two had made their way into the crowd, a loud rumbling noise filled the area.
Master, get down!
Judas Tower only took a few moments before collapsing entirely to the ground. As the building fell, it crushed the hundreds of people inside it, and the tons of falling debris caved in other nearby buildings as well, destroying the bodies of many unfortunate individuals who were walking through the market. The screams and cries of hundreds of terrified citizens permeated the area, with most everyone quickly speeding away from the tower in fear.
Where are you?
Someone help us!
Get the hell off me! What happened?
Nobu tried to shake Elicia off, but she let him up the moment she was told. He quickly shot to his feet, looking around at the chaos surrounding him.
Elicia, stay alert. Judas Tower doesn't allow magic inside, which means whoever did this did it manually, and they're still nearby.
Yes, of course, Master.
Nobu and Elicia kept their heads on a swivel, diligently scanning the crowd, but they found it difficult as citizens pushed past them in an attempt to run away.
There, those two.
Elicia pointed towards an area next to the tower, attempting to point out two individuals who were walking away from the tower with distressed expressions, one of which was holding a large shovel.
Them? Why them?
Every person in Judas is running away from that building. Those two are walking, which means they either genuinely don't care or they're the culprits.
You think two people bombing Judas wouldn't anticipate chaos and run with them to blend in?
Yes, but if they have anything damning on them, they would rather walk than risk getting thrown around in the crowd, dropping it and exposing themselves.
Like the Judas seal. Damn, you're right. When we get there, don't kill them. Just fight to subdue. They could be of use to us. Now, let's go!
Elicia gave Nobu a confused look, then shrugged before the two began shoving their way through the crowd, trying to keep their eyes on the two individuals. After at least 5 minutes of chasing them through the chaos, the suspicious individuals turned into an alleyway, starting to speed up their movement. Nobu and Elicia ran into it soon after and caught up to them. The two seemed to be kneeling on the ground and fiddling with a fist-sized crystal glowing a dim brown, as well as a small pedestal emanating phala.
Hey, stop right there! Hands out in front of you with your palms open, now!
Fuck! Amber, put it away, we've been made!
The man who had just spoken handed the crystal to the woman he called Amber. She quickly put it on the ground and took out a stick from her pocket, tracing a circle around both the crystal and the pedestal, causing them to instantly disappear. Elicia was already sprinting towards Amber in an attempt to stop her, but the spell went through before she could reach her. The man turned around to face Nobu, brandishing a large shovel with a polished silver head. The man was fairly tall, at about 6 feet in height. He had rugged black hair that went down to his neck, dark skin, and gray eyes. He had quite an athletic build, but wore very average clothing. He had on a black t-shirt and a dark green jacket that wasn't zipped. On his wrists were tight silver and gold bangles, and he had on a pair of brass knuckles made out of some kind of black material. The knuckles seemed to have been nearly fused onto his hands, as he exhibited no issues in properly holding the shovel while using them. For his bottoms, he had on dark blue pants and brown slip-on shoes. He was the leader of a rebel organization that people rarely took seriously, and his name was Johnathan Powers.
Put down your weapons. We don't need to fight. We just want to talk.
As Nobu spoke, Johnathan glared at him and held out his shovel, swinging it towards Elicia as she passed him in her attempt to get to Amber. In a blink of an eye, Elicia had taken her blade out and deflected the blow, sliding under the arc of his swing and jumping up at Amber, tackling her onto her back.
There's nothing to talk about. You're with the Ozriroths. That damned family is at fault for half of what's wrong with this world today.
I'm not with them. That family's done me no favors. Just calm down.
Giving Nobu no time to talk, Johnathan threw the shovel forward with a perfect spin. It flew through the air and hit Nobu in the chest, the sound of at least one rib cracking, echoing in his ears.
If you think I'm going to stand by while you lock me up or execute me, then you're dead wrong. I'm the only one who can bring real change to this world, and you won't get in my way!
I can't condone what you did to the tower. But damn it, can't you see reason and just talk to me? I don't want to lock you up or kill you. Hell, even if I did, I don't have that kind of authority. But if it's a fight you want, then it's a fight you'll damn well get.
While Nobu and Johnathan spoke, Elicia was busy wrestling Amber on the ground. Amber's hands were pinned above her head, unable to move. Yet she looked at Elicia with a crazed smile that made it look like she didn't care at all. Crazed, in fact, was an apt description of her whole appearance. She stood at about 5'6" in height and had a white complexion with a strong build. Her eyes were black and orange, with black markings like arrows painted on the outer edge of each eye. Her hair was short, stopping just above the ears, and was colored in 2 tones, the tips being black while the rest of the hair was a fiery orange color. One of her most notable features was her pointed ears, signaling that she was an elf, which was quite rare to see outside of a few certain cities. She wore a black leather jacket which wasn't closed, leaving the skin down the center of her body completely visible. Her chest was wrapped in a tight white tape, binding it down to where her chest looked almost completely flat. The leather of the jacket had been cut at the elbows, showing off several tattoos of multicolored flames down the length of her forearms. She also had on a chain skirt covered in crimson red cloth with a sword on her hip, and she wore no shoes at all. Her full name was Amber Blackfyre, and she was Johnathan's right-hand woman.
You know, I was kinda hoping something would go wrong so I could kick someone's ass.
Amber brought her feet up and planted them onto Elisia's chest, pushing forward with explosive force, knocking her back towards the wall. Elisia managed to keep her balance, but Amber had bought enough time to stand and draw her blade, a simple, well-made longsword. Elisia took a glance at Nobu, who had just finished telling Johnathan he was ready to fight. He nodded to her, and Elisia took off sprinting around a corner in the alley, going deeper in.
Get back here, coward!
Nobu, recognizing Elisia had left, held both hands out to the side. A green spark flashed in one of them, and a yellow one flashed in the other. After a moment, the two sparks of light materialized into Nobu's magic weapon, which appeared to be a set of 2 daggers. One of them was emanating a green color, and it had a curved edge looking almost more like a sickle than a dagger, and the other was a glowing yellow and looked like the blade was rapidly spinning in its handle, almost like a drill, the yellow spark that created it never disappearing. Johnathan looked at Nobu while smirking and holding out his shovel as he looked at the weapons.
Always so reliant on magic, aren't you? You ever considered doing anything without it?
Ah, I see now. You're a Nihilios. Well, sorry, but just because you can't use magic doesn't make it unnatural for others to do so. It should make this quick, though.
Nobu swung the green blade in his left hand, and it let out a large clanging noise in midair as it seemed to separate. The blade slowly split into parts, connected by a line of glowing green energy, turning it into a kind of whip as he swung. Johnathan appeared shocked as the blade hooked him in the leg, wrapping around as if it was stuck to him. Johnathan winced loudly as it cut into him before Nobu pulled on it, knocking Johnathan to his back.
I really am sorry. Now, just let me talk, please.
That's the problem with all you damn magic users. Always get your way in everything, so long as you're strong enough. Never have to listen or obey any others. Well, guess what? Bullshit! And I'm going to tear that society apart!
As Johnathan screamed, he brought his shovel down, digging it between one of the links in Nobu's blade. He just got louder as he pressed against it, Nobu trying to pull on the blade with a shocked expression. After a few seconds, a screeching noise sounded out as he tore through the magic chain, breaking the sword before shooting towards Nobu.
And I'm starting with you! Because guess what? Ozriroth, your entire family, is filled with cancerous people that perpetuate the cycle of the world! The cycle of the strong devouring the weak and using them to stroke their own egos!
Johnathan took a swing at Nobu's head, who raised up the yellow blade in his right hand to block in response, staying quiet, with anger building behind his eyes. The spinning blade collided with the shovel, as the metal screech of them colliding sounded out, sending sparks of yellow magic everywhere.
Maybe your death will send a message to all peasants across Luxon that they do have a chance to make a difference. And when that happens, that's when all of you are doomed.
Nobu locked eyes with Johnny, meeting him with the same anger that he'd been expressing this whole time, before muttering something under his breath. A pulse of electricity shot through the blade and launched Johnathan into the air, with him letting out a gasp and wincing as he landed on top of a roof.
Oh, you think this is what I wanted? Are you hearing yourself? Fun fact, my family thinks of me as a pile of shit beneath their feet. Pulse!
Nobu pointed the blade in his right hand downwards as he finished speaking, and another electric pulse shot through the blade. He jumped in the air at the same time, the force adding on top of his jump, sending him shooting up to the sky above where Johnny was. He held up his blade, and as he landed, he plunged it into Jonathan's stomach, with him screaming out in pain as the blade drilled inside of him, tearing apart much of his insides. After a few seconds, he removed the blade and began speaking.
And now here you stand, A man pissed off about his life because he was born without magic, raging out against another just because of the last name he was given when he was born. I get it. I understand. Nihilios have horrible lives, but saying all nobles deserve death is foolish and naive. And if you can't...
As Nobu was speaking, Johnathan grabbed his shovel next to him and lunged it at his chest, cutting into it deeply, making Nobu stumble backwards in shock. Johnathan then lunged forward and tackled Nobu, sending the both of them off the roof, holding him by the shoulders. As Nobu's body slammed into the ground, he cried out. Johnathan, still pouring out blood from his stab wound, held the shovel in the middle of the handle and raised it, preparing to slam it into Nobu's face.
You could never understand what it's truly like to wake up every morning knowing that any peasant in Luxon could tell you what to do and you'd have no choice but to listen. To never have your voice heard by anyone. To be considered a stain on society itself. No noble, outcast or otherwise, will ever understand that life.
I know. You're right. And I'm sorry.
Johnathan looked down to Nobu and dropped his shovel to the ground, getting off of him and falling backwards. As he did, Elias came around the corner of the alley again, holding Amber by the throat, the both of them bleeding from several cuts across their bodies.
Master, I got her. What do you want me to do?
Just let her go. Put her down.
Elias nodded and dropped Amber to the ground, who, seeing Johnathan, ran to Nobu instantly to attack, but was stopped by Elias tackling her once more.
Get your hands off me. You killed him, you bastard!
Nobu approached Johnny, ignoring Amber, and fed him a healing potion from the pouch on his side. Some of Johnny's cuts and bruises healed, but the main wound in his abdomen was left open. He then drank a healing potion himself, which healed most of his wounds, aside from the broken ribs.
Normal healing magic won't be enough here. Both of us need a trained healer.
Can't believe I let you do such a number on me. And don't worry, Amber. I'm fine.
Save your strength, Johnny. Don't talk.
Amber escaped from Alicia's grasp and picked up Johnny, a few tears coming to her eyes as Nobu stepped away in thought.
Wait a minute. Because of Judas Tower, all of the healers are probably up to their knees in patience right now. Shit! Elias, how much dockeral do we have?
About 10,000, Master.
All right, that'll do. Follow me, both of you. And after you're done recovering, we need to have a little chat.
Really? You nearly kill him, and then you have the nerve to...
It's fine, Amber. He's right. I got too caught up in anger. We never should have fought in the first place. But if you want to talk, it'll have to wait till later. I have a speech to give tonight.
You seriously still plan on doing that? Don't be an idiot. You have to focus on recovering, not...
Amber almost spoke up again, but elected not to, simply frowning and following quickly as Nobu and Elias left the alley. The capital district of Luxon was one which contradicted the nature of its existence. Eridus was, after all, the district representing hate magic, and so one would expect a stagnant place where war and the tyranny of the queen was at its peak. Contrary to the expectation, however, Eridus was a place that was quite pleasant to live. Astrid was a dictator, there's no doubt about that, but at the end of the day, most just saw her as a child with too much power. As long as you didn't go against her or expect her to do anything of much difficulty, she wouldn't bother you. As such, it was mostly her council that controlled Eridus, and they wanted to make it a grand place of culture and success, which is exactly what they did. Eridus was by far the district with the most cultural diversity, with all races of people mixing together at markets, playhouses, taverns, and pretty much every other gathering hub found in cities. Snow fell year-round in Eridus, as it was located in the far northeast of Luxon, yet somehow it never actually seemed that cold to those inhabiting it. Despite this freedom and relative ease of living, it was still not free from all the pain and hardship that came with living in a place ruled by someone who would one day be known as the Rotted Queen. Walking through the busy markets of Angala, the capital city of Eridus, was a man moving without a care in the world. He was relatively short, standing about 5 feet and 5 inches tall, and he was quite thin. He was also extremely well-toned, muscles being visible through the clothes he was wearing. He had pale white skin and rugged hair that went down to just below his ears. The color of his hair seemed to be pink, though it was muted with black throughout it, and his eyes were a dim brown. Right now, he had on a white button-up over a tight, gray-blue and long-sleeved undershirt, though the button-up was not part of his usual attire. The same applied to his pants, which, while they were currently a pair of simple black dress pants, they would normally instead be a pair of baggy gray sweatpants. Finally was a pair of nice black dress shoes, which would normally be replaced by him simply going barefoot. This man was a demogun, but unlike others who were in the stable clan, meaning they could feel almost no emotion at all when outside of magic use mode, he was in the insatiable clan. Insatiable demoguns were nearly always hated by society, as they could exclusively feel emotions which were born from actions of chaos. This meant that they could only feel joy and positive emotion through doing things outside of the norm for society, such as harming others or putting themselves in dangerous situations. On top of that, besides feelings of anger or annoyance, they were completely unable to feel any kind of negative emotions, including grief, sadness, or remorse, outside of magic use mode. They were beings that lived to ride the high of pushing life to the extreme until the very end, truly embodying what it meant to be insatiable. For this man, such a personality was actually beneficial, as it made him frighteningly good at his job. His name was Eamon Ameri, and he was the leader of the most powerful and well-renowned mercenary group across Lexan, the Shattered Blade.
What's a man gotta do to find a good mark around here? Oh, there we go.
As he was walking through the markets, Eamon came up behind a woman in the crowd whose body was made entirely of a substance that was gelatinous, red, and see-through. She was a Bituma, a race that had been created by humans long ago. As Eamon approached behind her, he looked around for anyone paying attention, and then quickly swiped a small pouch on her hip with such finesse that she didn't feel it at all. Eamon gave himself a satisfied smirk and then grinned as he started walking backwards, looking at a large man walking behind him in the crowd.
Damn, fat ass! I can hear your footsteps from over here. Mind staying back a few miles?
What? I didn't do shit to you, man! What was that for?
Right. My apologies. I forget if you experience something enough you desensitize yourself to it. Or maybe you're just an idiot. Here, let me act it out for you.
Eamon puffed up his cheeks and held his hand out in front of him in a circle. He then began lifting his knees high up and stomping on the ground as he walked and pointed to his ears with a grin on his face.
There! Understand, buddy?
Fuck you, man! Back off!
Fuck me? Frankly, I'm a little disappointed that I look bad enough for you to think I'm even close to being in your league. But nah, why don't you try a playhouse instead? Here, first visit's on me.
Eamon smiled at the man and removed a Dockrell coin from the pouch he stole, flicking it into the man's shirt.
Ah, shit. Well, good luck finding that.
Alright, that's it, asshole!
The man lunged forward at Eamon, trying to tackle him. Eamon, however, simply closed his eyes and muttered something under his breath. Seemingly instantly, he disappeared, leaving the man now tackling the Bituma woman to the ground. Eamon appeared about 50 feet off to the side of the market in a nearby alley. He removed the white button-up to avoid the man pointing him out as easily, and started tapping his foot with a wide grin, ready to watch the chaos unfold.
What the? Get off of me, you freak!
Wait! That wasn't me! Where did he?
Wait. My purse. Where did it go? Someone, get the guards! This man stole my purse!
As the woman shouted, The crowd of people walking through the market turned and started shouting at the man.
You really think you can just do
Damn
that to
idiot
people?
doing this in broad daylight.
I'll get the guards.
Guys, I swear, this wasn't me! It was someone!
Stop your dumbass excuses and give it back.
It wasn't long before the crowd calmed down, and 2 guards came by, hitting the man with the shaft of his spear until he fell onto his stomach, wincing out.
Please, just hear me out. I didn't! I swear! I'm begging you guys!
Yeah. Now come on, let's go.
The guards picked up the man and began to drag him away as he looked down dejected, before a particular person began to speak.
Don't you know it's wrong to steal from women? Damn freak!
The man's eye twitched in response to Eamon's provocation, followed by him exploding in rage, attempting to pull away from the guards restraining him.
I'm gonna kill him! I fucking swear! Let me at him! It's him over there!
One of the guards hit the man in the head with a blunt end of the spear, knocking him unconscious.
Do these guys ever shut up? Jeez.
The guards finally finished dragging the man out of sight, and Eamon began walking again with a satisfied sigh.
All in a day's work. Anyway.
Eamon stood on the side of the path where almost no one was, and held an arm out, seemingly trying to measure something. Looking ahead, about a mile down the path was an entrance gate to a massive black and silver castle with a large rotting tree growing out of the roof. He closed his eyes and took a small breath.
Let's see. Seemed like a light upward slope. 5,000 feet north body side. 10.5 feet up body side. Go.
The moment he said go, his body disappeared, and he reappeared just a few hundred feet from the gate of the castle, feet planted firmly on the ground. The gate was guarded by a man and a woman who were holding a spear and had no armor of any kind, just simple peasant attire.
Fucking nailed it! Hell yeah! Hey, you two! I got a question!
Eamon ran up to the 2 guards, putting his button-up back on as they raised an eyebrow.
So how would you feel if I went in there and killed Astrid? Would you be mad because that's your duty? Or would you be happy because on the inside you guys hate her just as much as everyone else?
The 2 guards stayed silent, and their lips quivered as they pointed their spears towards Eamon.
Hey, come on, lighten up. It was a joke. Oh, and by the way, if you see a big guy that just got arrested for stealing, he's actually innocent. That was me. Sorry about that. Here's your purse if you want to give it back. Or hey, maybe don't. Go on a spa day. Treat yourselves. Anyway, see ya.
Eamon tossed the purse he had stolen into the air before closing his eyes and muttering a few words, disappearing right after. The guards were left completely dumbfounded, staring at the pouch on the ground before one of them went and snatched it, quickly shoving it into their pocket. Eamon reappeared right in front of a set of massive black double doors that had a symbol of 2 thorned roses crossing engraved on it in gold. Eamon cleared his throat before placing both hands on the double doors and opening them in an overly dramatic fashion.
Man, love a good pair of double doors. No better way to enter a room. Hey you! Slave over there! Go get your mistress for me, would ya?
Eamon leaned onto a wall as he spoke to a woman wearing ragged clothing. She quickly nodded to him and ran up a large spiral staircase in the center of the massive room. It was only at this point that Eamon took the time to look around and take in his surroundings. The room he had entered was completely spotless, not a stain or a speck of dirt to be found. Even the carpet he had walked in on was somehow clean, with none of the dirt or rocks on the bottom of his shoes being visible on it. It was decorated almost entirely with black and silver, being made of a fine marble material that was so well polished one would be able to see their own reflection in it. The centerpiece of the room was the spiral staircase going up at least 100 feet. Every few steps, the stair's color would change, and the colors it changed between were those which represented each essence type. Eamon's eyes were focused on this staircase, on the radiant glow that came from it. But it wasn't long before the queen herself came running down the steps, a look of excitement on her face.
Eamon! What a surprise! What brings you to Eridos?
Can it not be enough that I want to pay my queen a visit?
As much as I would love for that to be the case, we both know that isn't your style, my friend.
Well said. Yeah, I'm here on business. A few days ago, I ran into a guy by the name of Johnathan Powers. Seemed to have some real rebellious tendencies. I offered him my services, but he was convinced he didn't need me. So, now I'm here to propose you hire me and my guys to take them out instead.
Eamon, dear. Johnathan Powers is nothing more than a nihilist, throwing a temper tantrum because he isn't strong enough to make a difference in the world, and doesn't like people telling him what to do. Any threat made by him is to be taken as a fox's promise. That someone like you would even consider offering him your services is pathetic.
Until today, I would have agreed with you, but...
I know mercs aren't commonly hired these days. So if you're in need of dock roll, simply ask for it. Don't try and sell me these embellished lies to convince me to hire you.
Listen, lady, I'm not trying to... Damn. Was it that obvious?
Yes, Eamon, it was. Now tell me what you need.
Alright, fine. I'm short on my payroll, about 5,000 dock roll.
5,000? What did you get yourself into?
I had a client back out on me after a month of work. If I don't pay these guys, they're gonna mutiny.
Fine. I'll bail you out this once. But don't expect such kindness next time around.
I wouldn't dare expect anything more from you, my queen. This generosity is already more than I expected.
Astrid smiled at Eamon before exiting the room as he leaned back against a wall, chuckling.
Well, may as well abuse our friendship while I still have it.
A few minutes later, Astrid came walking back into the room, holding a sizable pouch. She approached Eamon and handed it to him.
There you are. Hopefully you'll see some work sooner rather than later.
We can all hope at least. Anyway, thanks again, Astrid. But I should be headed back now.
Of course. I wouldn't want to keep you from your work after all. Safe travels.
Eamon gave Astrid a soft smile, nodding to her before walking out of the castle.
Let's see. Should take about half an hour to reach Judas from here. Just in time for that rebel's big speech. God, if I have to hear him rant about nihilio suppression one more time, I'm gonna gouge out my own eardrums. Whatever. Bound to get some kind of useful information.
Eamon let out a sigh before closing his eyes and muttering to himself, quickly disappearing from where he was standing in front of the castle.
Johnny, sit your ass down! You aren't ready!
Listen, I booked that warehouse in 20 minutes. I have to get over there now!
Ugh. Either of you two want to help me out?
Sorry, but I understand where he's coming from.
Johnathan, Nobu, Elisia, and Amber were all standing inside of a relatively small room inside of a hospital. Nobu, Elisia, and Amber all seemed to be fully healed at this point, but Johnny still had a wrapping over his stomach wound, a green glow coming from it.
Whatever. I guess he could suck it up for this speech. But if he tears out the implant, then it's on your guys' ass.
Deal. But before that, I told you earlier, Johnny, I'm not just here to help you recover. I'm here to talk.
And as I've told you, it'll have to wait till after the speech.
Just listen for a sec, okay? I know that we don't have the same lives, but I did agree with most of what you said during our fight. If you'd allow us, I'd like to sit in on your speech. And if I like what I hear, maybe I'll help you out.
Damn. I didn't think there'd be a noble in Luxon who'd consider that. Well, guess we'll see how it goes then. But if you're coming, you better keep up, 'cause we're leaving now.
Johnathan limped as he exited the hospital room with the group, slowly making his way outside, using his shovel to help support him. Upon exiting, the group saw much of the city still in disarray, large pieces of debris still scattered about, and a few bodies yet to have been dealt with.
That's another thing. No matter how I feel about your cause, if I join up with you, this can't happen again. I get it. You wanted to take out some of the higher-ups of Judas, but this was too much. You killed hundreds of people.
You think he wanted this? Johnny would never kill an innocent
Then maybe blowing up the entire town was a foolish play.
Amber's right. We didn't actually blow up the tower. All we were after was the seal. We didn't know that the magic it released was also being used to hold the building together.
What? None of the other towers that use a seal rely on them. How is that possible?
Actually, it makes some amount of sense. The seal freezes the state of all magic in the area. Judas is a fairly poor nation, so they may have cut corners by using magic to reinforce and attach materials without genuine engineering, knowing the seal would freeze the magic and stop it from wearing off. When the seal was removed, the magic holding the building together expired, causing a chain reaction that brought it down.
Given that Judas Tower is pretty new, I'd say you're right. Cutting corners on construction using the seal explains how they could have made it without having to spend much dock roll. Pathetic.
Even more of a reason to hate those bastards. Even if I hadn't taken it, did they think it would last forever? Those things run out of energy. Guess those dipshits just assumed by the time it did, it wouldn't be their problem.
Relax, man. Save the anger for the speech.
Right. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Amber put a hand on Johnny's shoulder as the group continued walking. Soon enough, they arrived at the outskirts of the city, at a structure that seemed to be an abandoned wooden storehouse. Johnny walked up to the door and entered it with the others, while forcing himself to stand up straight, ignoring the pain it caused him to do so.
What is it that all of you think makes the world work?
Johnny started speaking right as he entered the building, holding his head high, showing no pain on his face. He turned his head to the left and saw a crowd of at least 500 people who had gathered to watch his speech. Nobu, Elias, and Amber all stood against the back wall and simply watched as he continued to speak.
Is it money? Love? Kindness? No. Right now, the only thing that runs the world is strength. If you're magic, if you are strong enough, then you make the rules. Then you decide how the game is played. I'm a Nihilios, and I, as well as many others like me, don't have a say in any of it. Because without magic, there's not much we can do. But I promise you all, I'm not here to talk about Nihilios oppression. I'm here to talk about the oppression of all peasants across Luxon.
As Johnny spoke, the crowd looked up at him with an annoyed look, clearly not taking him seriously, causing him to become annoyed as well.
Because it isn't just me and other Nihilios that suffer from the system. It's you too. How many of you in the crowd actually have an opportunity to make a difference in the world? None of you.
Oh, shut the hell up! You just want to make us feel bad because you can't do shit.
No, that isn't how it is. Truly think about it. No one here can actually choose how anything in the world goes, because individually, none of us hold a candle to those at the top. Even now, my greatest allies are those with the most strength, because to stop a system built with strength, you need strength yourself. You need the physical and magical strength to take control, and then the mental strength to use that control to create a better world.
At this point, much of the crowd had gotten rowdy, booing at Johnathan and shouting towards him, many of them beginning to leave the building. Both Johnny and Amber seemed to be getting more enraged as the crowd continued.
God damn it, listen to me, people! I didn't bring you here to make you all feel bad. I wanted to make you want to do something about it. Because banding together is the only chance we have to make a difference.
By the time Johnathan had finished speaking, the crowd had thinned to maybe a dozen or so people, who had now begun to leave as well.
Listen, some of us here do see what you're saying, but what's the point? Fighting them is just suicide. Maybe if there was a chance, it'd be different. But right now, we'd just be lambs to the slaughter. Sorry, kid. Keep reaching high.
As Johnny listened to the woman speak, he clenched his fist and teared up, and once everyone had cleared from the area, he punched a wall as hard as he could while letting out a shout of rage, starting to bleed from the knuckles. Amber walked up behind him and placed a hand on his shoulder, a remorseful expression on her face.
Amber, Elisia, why don't you two take a walk? Johnny, come with me. Let's get a drink.
Very well, Master.
That probably would do you some good right now, Johnny.
A drink isn't gonna fix this shit.
It won't, but some time to think might.
Nobu slipped his hands into his pockets and left the building. In response, Johnathan looked up to Amber with a look of confusion, who simply nodded to him. He let out a sigh and followed him out. The two walked for a few minutes in silence, Nobu looking up at the sky as he went. Eventually, they made it to the nearest tavern, and when Nobu opened the door, two people rushed at them, smiling.
Hey, Johnny! Just the man I wanted to see.
Volker? Edmund? What are you two doing here?
Well, actually we're here to talk to you. We knew you were in town today, so we thought we'd stop by.
And who's this guy?
Volker pointed to Nobu, tapping on his chest.
Nobu Ozriroth. Pleasure to meet you.
What? Johnny, you have an Ozriroth on board with you?
It's a long story. Let's head in and get a drink. Then I'll tell you all about it.
Sweeter words have never been spoken.
The four men made their way to a spot in the corner of the tavern away from most others. Edmund then went over to the bar and ordered 4 drinks before headed back to the table with them, setting a drink in front of each man.
Sorry, but I've never been one to partake in alcohol.
Well, if you'll be hanging around us, that's bound to change eventually.
Edmund chuckled before Johnathan, Volker, and himself chugged their drinks. Volker then reached over and chugged Nobu's for him.
So, let's stop beating around the bush. Johnny, Eddie and I wanted to join up with you.
Johnny's eyes opened wide in shock.
Seriously? I swear I've been trying to convince you two for years. Fucking finally!
Astrid held an execution today in Mentris, and Volker went at her, and it almost got him killed. So, yeah, we've been convinced. Can't do this alone anymore.
Well, me and my guys will be happy to have you. But after tonight, it's not like there'll be that many people to join up with.
What's that supposed to mean? Didn't you have a speech tonight to fix that problem?
Yeah, I did. But those spineless cowards decided they'd rather live in stable oppression than face an uncertain future by fighting against them.
The fuck? So they're all just fine letting Astrid walk all over them the rest of their lives?
No, I actually don't think that's what they were saying. Honestly, Johnny, that's what I brought you here to talk about in the first place.
Alrighty then, go ahead. Wow me with your new insights.
One of the crowd members said it themselves. Many of them don't disagree with you. They just think it's suicide to go against her. And that's only because you're an Helios.
Hi, welcome to the problem.
The thing is, that's not an insurmountable problem. You sell yourself short because you lack magic. Whether you wanted to blow it up or not, you still had the determination to raid Judas Tower. That speech you gave was powerful. You have charisma. People are just too afraid to follow someone at your level of power. Long story short, if you got some stronger allies and gave that exact same speech, I guarantee you half that room would be chanting your name right now.
So what? Now that I have Edmund and Volker here, you think I should just do it again?
Not exactly. You need someone the world perceives as strong. I'm not too well versed in the strength of these two, but no matter how strong they are, they lack recognition. What you need is a respected noble. And before you ask, remember, I was thrown out of my family. You aren't gonna find a respected noble in me.
You think a single damn noble across Luxon would help tear down the system that they're a part of?
Actually, yeah, I do.
Both Nobu and Johnny looked over to Edmund expectantly.
Just today, Volker and I ran into Eleanor Aster from Mentris. Call it a hunch, but I get the feeling that she's not the type that'd be happy with the power she holds over people.
Now that's a noble people could get behind.
Johnathan stood up and smiled.
So, you two met her? Think you can get her on our side?
Well, We could definitely try.
Of fucking course we can! Now come on! Who wouldn't drink to that?
Volker looked to Nobu as he spoke.
Very well. Bring the drinks.
That's the spirit!
Volker went over to the bar and got another round of drinks, setting them around the table for the 4 men who all quickly raised their mugs high into the air.
Then that's what we'll do. Get Eleanor to support us and convince the world that our cause is just. To a just new world!
To a just new world!
The 4 men clinked glasses and began laughing as they chugged their drinks, filled with newfound purpose. At the same time, however, a man wearing a cloak over his head stood up and exited the tavern inconspicuously. He stretched his arms over his head and tossed the cloak onto the floor.
Would you look at that? The Nihilio's throwing a temper tantrum is looking to get the Asters on his side. There's gotta be at least a few families who'd love to hear that piece of information.
Eamon smiled to himself before walking down the stairs to the tavern. He muttered quietly under his breath as he closed his eyes, starting to laugh loudly before disappearing, the sounds of his laughter echoing around the area even after he was gone.